Hi, I'm David at Mash IT, and today we're looking at another Ryzen budget gaming laptop. Here we have the Lenovo Legion 5P. This is a budget laptop we've been looking forward to getting in for a long time. We managed to buy this for £899 in the UK, and for that money you're getting an 8-core 16-thread Ryzen 7 CPU and a 2060 full power 115 watt GPU in there. So let's open it up and see how she performs. Now this is a budget laptop, so it's quite no frills. It's not a bad looking, but just a cardboard box. And inside the box, we've got some packaging. And a nicely wrapped laptop. Now the good thing is, it's not just plastic, it is a nice little cover there for the laptop, which is nice. And there we go. One Legion 5P. Quite a large 230 watt power adapter, but probably similar to an Alienware. And some manuals. And that's it. It really is quite a no-frills sort of unboxing experience. So we recently reviewed the Omen 15 from HP, which was very similar specs to this. It had the 4800H with a 1660 Ti. And I loved the performance on that laptop, but there was a few things that bugged me with it. It had a lot of good features, the screen was lovely, the performance was amazing, but the fan profile was really quite annoying. It goes from really quiet and it just ramps up to quite a high speed, oscillates between the two, which does get quite annoying. I'd rather it stayed at a level and just, even if it was loud, I'd rather it just got loud and stayed loud till you finished your game. But we loved the performance of the Ryzen, so I was looking forward to getting another gaming Ryzen laptop. Now this Legion 5P from Lenovo, it was actually even cheaper than the Omen 15, but with even better specs. Now in this one we've got the same Ryzen 7 4800H, which is a 7nm AMD 8-core CPU with 16 threads. But we've also got a 2060 in this model, so an RTX 2060, and this is the full fat 115 watts, and we'll discuss that later on because you have to enable like the boost mode to get that 115 watts, but it is there and available. Now it does only come with 8GB, and we'll be testing it today with 8GB, but there will be another video coming. I've ordered some more RAM and I'm going to open it up and add a second stick in here, and we'll see if we get a performance boost from that. But we're going to be testing it today in its out of its box configuration. So we've got 8GB of RAM and a 256, so it is very bargain basement, but we're going to look at upgrading it later. So firstly, before we open it up, let's take a quick look around the laptop. So the top of the machine, you can see it's plastic, it feels quite solid, and it's got the Legion logo. I believe this lights up, we're going to have a look in a little while. Pretty much nothing on the front. On the left side, we've got a headset jack, and we've got a USB port, and some venting. And on the right side, we have a hard disk drive light, another USB port, and some more venting. And finally, on the back, this is where most of our ports are. So we've obviously got our quite large grills there for pumping the heat straight out the back of the machine. We've got an RJ45. We've got a USB-C. Now this won't be Thunderbolt because this is Ryzen and we don't get that. So it's just USB-C. Another 2 USB 3 ports. That's quite good. That's 4 in total. HDMI 2, their proprietary power jack, and a Kensington lock. So a really good array of ports, and also I like the fact that a lot of them are on the back, so they're pushing out the back of the machine and not getting in the way of your hands when you're using your mouse. So that's a nice touch, I like that. Also, on the top of the lid, they've actually listed the ports here as well, so you can see what it is you're plugging into. So now we're going to open it up and take a look inside. One-handed opening works nicely, quite a nice touch from a budget laptop. Now you can see in here we've got a nice array of stickers, quite annoying, and it has got a nice soft touch finish, which is quite nice when you put your hands on here. It feels like a plastic with a soft touch coating, but it's nice and comfortable to use. So this is a budget laptop, so you're not going to get a lot of aluminiums and distant, magnesiums that you would get on the premium laptops. But this is an £899 laptop, so you've got to accept some cuts. But it feels sturdy and it feels solid. So I certainly wouldn't have any problems using a machine like this, especially for a gaming machine. Now the touchpad is quite small, and it's obviously not centered to the laptop, it's centered to the keyboard, so it's slightly over onto the left hand side, but it sort of tracks well, and you've got inbuilt clicks which work nicely. And then we move up to the keyboard. Now we've got a full-size keyboard and number pad, which a lot of people will like. I personally prefer a centered keyboard without a number pad on a laptop, but having used this for a few days now, it's a very impressive keyboard. It's got a nice tactile feedback. I love the shape of Lenovo keys. This is one of the things I always love about Lenovo laptops. Their keyboards are always brilliant. They feel nice and crisp and they're lovely to type on. They're also backlit. If you press Function and spacebar, you enable the backlight. And on the number pad side, you've also got some dedicated media keys at the top if you wish to use them. Now there's no Windows Hello, there's no fingerprint readers. This is a budget, no-frills laptop, so you're not going to get some of those premium features that you would expect on like an expensive razor blade. But on a budget machine, I would rather they put in a solid feature set of decent things that you're going to be needing, so keyboard, screen, and performance in a solid chassis than worrying about all the niceties that you get with the expensive brands. So this is a good usable laptop, but as I say, you're not going to get some of those premium features. Now moving up to the screen, this model's got a 144 Hz IPS panel. Now the one we've got in here is made by LG, and it's a nice panel to use. It feels nice and responsive, it's bright, and it's pretty colour accurate for one of these 144 Hz panels. Now I do personally prefer a 17-inch laptop, but I've used this for a good week or so now, and I've really enjoyed my time with this 15-inch panel. So this leads me on to the biggest, I would say, negative of this laptop. If you notice at the top of the screen, there's no webcam. Now this is one of the very few laptops out there that actually has no webcam installed in this unit. The only other one I can think of is the Asus G14, the 14-inch AMD gaming notebook. So a bit of a strange omission. You can still use the inbuilt microphone array for Zoom calls or voice calls. There's just obviously no microphone. Now, if you're using this purely for gaming, that's probably not going to be an issue. I mean, a lot of people have a dedicated webcam up the top anyway, rather than using the pretty poor inbuilt webcams. But very strange from Lenovo not to pop one in there. But I personally don't use a webcam very often, so I would be quite happy just getting a dedicated webcam for the one time that I did need it every now and again. So for me, for a gaming laptop, this wouldn't be a big deal, but this is something you need to take under consideration if you're looking at the 5P Legion. So now we've looked at the actual overall package itself, what about the performance of this laptop? Well, before we look at some of the benchmarks, what I want to draw your attention to is the power button. Because the power button just above the keyboard here, it's got a little light in the middle of it. You'll notice at the moment it's blue. Now if you press Function Q, you can switch it from different performance modes. So you can either go, blue is quiet or cool, white is default, and red is extra performance or boosted performance. You can also change this in the Lenovo Vantage software. So as well as obviously using the hotkeys for changing the performance mode, we can do it within the Lenovo Vantage software. This is a nice piece of software that comes with the laptop that allows you to change a lot of the settings for the system. Now, on the front page, it's quite good. It gives you your GPU, your CPU, and your RAM and SSD use, which is quite nice. And over on the right, you'll see we've got the thermal mode. We're currently set to quiet. Now, the quiet mode will keep the laptop, it will throttle the CPU a little bit, and it will keep the GPU at 80 watts for a quieter system. Then if we move on to the next, which is the default mode, or balanced mode, it will unthrottle that CPU, and it will also keep your GPU at 80 watts, and that's the sort of the default mode that it will come in. And then lastly, you have your performance mode. Now by clicking this button, the laptop will be louder, but not only do you get full performance on the 8-core CPU, but you also get 115 watts on the RTX 2060, so a big boost in performance by popping it into this mode. And in our testing, I didn't notice that it was a lot louder either, so a very useful mode. Certainly something you want to be considering if you're using it for a competitive shooter or something. Whilst we're in here, before we move on to the performance sort of benchmarks, a couple of other useful settings within this Vantage software. You'll notice here we've got the hybrid mode. Now this is great. You can either choose to be in dedicated graphics all the time, which will kill your battery life a little bit, but it will always have that NVIDIA RTX 2060 running. It won't even show the Vega graphics on board the CPU. Now this is good because you don't have to worry about any graphics switching, and you do get slightly better benchmarks results in this mode. With a simple toggle of this switch, we're going to turn on the Vega graphics as well as the RTX 2060, a quick reboot, and then it will run the Vega graphics until it needs something more powerful, and then it will fire up the RTX 2060 in like an Optimus mode. This is great for battery life. And our testing of the battery, streaming YouTube over Wi-Fi at 50% brightness with all the energy settings disabled, we got about just over 9.5 hours on this laptop. So in this hybrid mode, you're getting impressive battery life, which for a gaming laptop is unheard of. And I'm guessing a lot of this is down to the 7nm Ryzen processors. They are quite frugal on power. So there's not many gaming laptops that can keep up with this sort of runtime. Very impressive. Underneath that, you've got overdrive. This is another unusual setting within the software. By clicking this mode on here, you're turning overdrive on the monitor and improving the response times. Certainly something that you're probably going to be wanting to use whilst gaming. Now I've played with it on and I haven't noticed any inverse ghosting or anything, so it certainly seems worthwhile if you are playing games, pop that setting on. And then lastly, you've got your touchpad lock, which can be quite useful if you're gaming. You can click that on, it locks the touchpad and just uses your mouse. So also within here, you can update your system settings and system drivers. You've got your power options and a few other options with the keyboards and backlights from within the software. It's nicely laid out and it's a good bit of software from the Legion. I actually prefer it than the Alienware Command Center. Right, so we're going to quickly test the speakers. Now these are down-firing speakers, so I'm not expecting amazing performance, but we're going to be running YouTube royalty-free music at 40% volume. So I'm going to take my microphone off so I can put it centrally to the laptop, and then we're going to give it a play. I'll pop that up to 50%. So actually, considering the downward firing speakers on a budget laptop, those really aren't bad at all. Definitely better than the Omen 15s we recently listened to. Again, I don't think it's something you're going to be listening to very often for music, but for a YouTube video or a podcast or something like that, or maybe even some game sounds in a pinch, it's certainly usable. Not bad at all. Okay, so on to the performance section. So we're going to start off with some CPU benchmarks, and then we'll move on to the GPU. Now, we're going to use Cinebench to start this benchmarking section because purely it absolutely stresses the cores. Now, things to note is we've obviously got the different power modes, so we're going to be looking at this in the quiet mode and the performance mode, so you get the sort of the best and the worst case scenarios. The quiet mode, when we're running sort of Cinebench, you're getting hardly any noise at all, which is really quite impressive, and it's still running at about 3 GHz over all 8 cores, 16 threads. Now, even in this mode, we're getting about 3,500 points in Cinebench R20, which is usually approximately about 1,000 points faster than your typical 45-watt Intel 10750H or 9750H hex core processors. So they've done an amazing job with these 4800H Ryzen processors. Not just that, because obviously they're 7nm, they don't seem to be running too hot, so the laptop isn't overheating and the fans aren't blaring like they are with an Intel. So let's have a quick look at the results we got with the Cinebench. So the Cinebench in quiet mode on multi-core scores was 3,549 points. Now if we switch that to the performance mode, we got 4,402 points, so quite a nice increase. And that's literally boosting all the cores to about 4 GHz right the way through the entire run. So quite an impressive score. Now moving on to the Geekbench CPU benchmark, we've got a single core score of 1,114 in quiet mode as opposed to 1,123 in performance mode. And on the CPU multi-core benchmark, the quiet mode scored 5,462 as opposed to the performance mode's 5,675. Now that's not a great deal more in this benchmark, but it's not a particularly long benchmark, which is where I think it sort of shows up the difference between the two. Also, one thing to note is this is running with one stick, so single channel 8GB of RAM. We're going to do another test in the near future in another video where we're going to upgrade it to 16GB of RAM, see if that makes much of a difference. So that moves swiftly on to some GPU benchmarks. So in quiet mode, the Geekbench 5 OpenCL score for the graphics is 63,132. So the Geekbench 5 OpenCL score for the performance mode is 67,224. So not that much of a difference between the two, but again, this isn't that heavy a test. We're going to see how much better it is in the actual time spy coming up. Okay, so we ran Time Spy on the quiet mode and we scored 6,093 points. That was a graphics score of 5,853 points and a CPU score of 7,945 points. Now this in its quiet mode is an incredibly impressive performance, but then we switched it to the performance mode and ran the Time Spy again. This time we scored 6,766 with a graphics score of 6,552 and a CPU score of 8,309. I mean, that CPU score is right up there with the i9 Intel laptops. Really impressive in a budget gaming laptop. So then we ran 3D Mark Firestrike, and in quiet mode we scored 13,775 with a graphics score of 14,695 and a physics score of 21,031. That gives a combined score of 6,933. We then switched it to the performance mode again, and this time we scored 14,935 with a graphics score of 15,896, a physics score of 21,303, and a combined score of 7,855. So here you can see the power of that 115 watt RTX 2060. So that's quite a nice boost, well over 1,000 points on the graphics score from the 80 watt to the 115 watt RTX 2060. This is seriously impressive for an £899 budget gaming laptop. I know I've said this a few times now, but having been using Razer blades that are always capped at 80 watts, and the Omen was also capped at 80 watts, to see a 115 watt RTX 2060 on an £899 laptop, this is really impressive stuff. So for the last of the benchmarks, we ran Unigine Valley. We put this in the Extreme HD preset. Now the quiet mode scored 2,874. And the performance mode scored 3,057. So again, a nice performance by putting it into that performance mode. So whilst we're looking at Valley, what we're going to also do now is we're going to test the decibels as well. Now you'll see on the top left hand corner we've got MSI Afterburner running, and this 79 to 80 watts we've got over in the right hand side. This is the GPU wattage. So you can see we are running in the 80 watt quiet mode. Temps wise, this is fantastic. We've got about 57 degrees on the GPU, which is really nice and cool whilst running at this 80 watt mode. The fans are just spinning up now. It's been running for a few minutes. I'm going to pop the decibel meter on there and you can see how quiet it is in quiet mode. So 42 to 43 decibels in quiet mode. That's really nice and quiet. You can hear a nice little bit of an air whoosh in the background, but it's certainly not distracting. And you're still getting really good performance and performance of a Razer blade in this mode, but with better CPU. So if you do want a sort of quite comfortable gaming experience, you can pop this on and save the extreme mode for when you've got your headset on, gaming on your own in your room later. So let's pop it into extreme mode. So we're going to press Function and Q till we get to the red power light. There we are. And you'll see now we've got 116 watts, 115 watts on the GPU. So temperatures are sort of ramping up a little bit, up to 65. And the fans are kicking up now. So 49 to 50 decibel in the extreme performance mode. Now again, the fans are quite audible here, but they're not horribly distracting. It's a nice whoosh of air. Obviously this isn't a particularly slim like laptop, so I'm guessing you've got a bit more room for your fans. So they've done a really good job here. Now when the fans are kicking up and we're in this extreme 115 watt mode, we're up to 69 degrees on the graphics card. So it's still easily able to handle this graphics card at 115 watts. Also something else I wanted to point out, even when you're gaming, the keyboard doesn't get overly hot. You get a little bit of temperature in the middle of the keyboard over here, but again it's warm, it's not hot, and over where your fingers will be on the WASD keys, it's still nice and cool. And also lifting up the laptop, it's not overly hot underneath. You could put this on your lap, but you probably would block the vents. But it's not overly hot on the underside of the laptop. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of gaming in Apex, just in the video settings at the moment. And you can see we are on all high settings. And you'll notice as well with the MSI overlay, we are running in the performance mode, so 115 watts. So you can see that running through this game, temps are great. It's running at 115 watts on the GPU. And even at all high settings, it's, you're getting good frame per second. And this is with a single stick of 8GB of RAM, so very impressive performance. As I will do a further video as soon as my second 8GB RAM stick turns up and I can upgrade it.
You'll be all right.
So that leads us into the conclusion. So this is our second AMD Ryzen 4800H gaming laptop now. We had the Omen 15 in first. Loved that laptop in a lot of aspects. I loved the performance of it. It was a great screen, it had a good keyboard, touchpad, it had a memory card. It was nice and compact. Everything was lovely. Apart from a couple of things, the speakers were quite tinny and weren't brilliant. And also, I didn't like the fan profile. Might be something that HP one day will fix in a BIOS, but at the moment it was really quite annoying. So when I saw this laptop come up, and it was even cheaper than the M15, but with a stronger graphics card, that also does 115 watts as well, so really impressive. I just had to get it in. I've been thoroughly impressed by it so far. It's a little bit bigger than the M15, so it's a little bit bulkier. You've got this little bit juts out the back, but you've still got a great port selection range with it. Apparently it's easy to open upgrade. I haven't done that, that's in an upcoming video. We've got an amazing keyboard with a number pad and separated cursor keys. There's a little bit of flex, but other than that, it's really solidly built. You can pick it up without any creaks. It feels really nice and solid in your hand. So they've created a lovely package with this Legion 5P. The only negative criticism I would give against it is got to be the lack of a webcam. I don't know why Legion thought that you didn't need a webcam in a laptop, especially at the moment. People are at home with their laptops, they might likely use a webcam. Now, of course, laptop webcams are usually rubbish, and most people use a dedicated webcam if they want a decent performing webcam anyway. But to not have one, I think is a real shame, and it's the biggest downside to this laptop. Everything else on it has just been absolutely stellar, especially for the price in the UK of £899. Now, it only comes with a single 8GB RAM stick, so I do think it's something that you need to do if you buy this. You need to upgrade it to at least 16, so you've got that second slot for dual channel. That video is coming up. But other than that, the performance of this laptop is out of this world. The Ryzen 4800H is an amazing 8-core 16-thread processor that not only does it outperform Intel in every way, but it does it with a lot less power and heat. So it's an absolutely incredible CPU to have in a laptop, and combined with a 115 watt 2060 gives you amazing game performance in this package, usually up there with laptops that are £1,700. So to have that into an £899 package with a decent screen, keyboard and a good touchpad and a good array of ports is a really solid platform. Also the battery life, you can switch it between dedicated or hybrid battery mode with the Optimus mode. And in the Optimus mode we've got really good battery life. For a gaming laptop, that's pretty much unheard of. So who would I recommend this laptop for? Well, if you're on a budget and you want a dedicated gaming laptop, I would say this is the laptop for you. I cannot find another laptop for this price that's as good as this. And this outperforms many laptops hundreds of pounds more than that. If you're looking for an all-around laptop that's good for work and gaming, then this may not be the best option because we haven't got a webcam and it's a bit bulkier than some of your other laptops out there like a Razer Blade. But personally, I would rather invest £899 in a laptop like this and then another few £100 on an iPad or a small Ultrabook that you could use for your work on the go, and then have a dedicated laptop for all your performance gaming in one nice solid package like this. If I didn't have a 17-inch Razer Blade, I would certainly be keeping this for myself, and I'm half tempted to keep this and get rid of the Razer Blade. It's that good. So let us know what you think about this laptop. Pop it in the comments down below. Do you think this is a good buy? Do you think there's anything better for the £899 that this laptop's currently selling for? Also, please hit the like and subscribe and the notifications button. You'll be notified of our upcoming content. We're obviously doing an upgrade video on this laptop, which will then go in depth in the performance as well once we add an extra 8GB of RAM. Also, we've got more laptops coming into the office soon, so there'll be plenty more content coming. Thank you for watching.